Winter Smith Park, right here in the heart of Ada, and Representative Todd Thomsen. Today, My Legislator TV comes to you, man. The session is over, and it must feel good.
Well, I have to tell you that it's nice to be at the Capitol. The Capitol is a beautiful place, but there's nothing like being at home, being back in Ada. And for anybody that's from the Ada area, will be very familiar with Winter Smith Park and just what really a crown jewel that this is for our community and for Southeast Oklahoma. But I have to say that really the legislative process this year was something that was really a great learning process for me. And that's the one thing I wanted to share with you all today as we talk a little bit about what happened this year in session. And the first thing I really want to do is talk about some of the things that happened for me personally, and that would be talking about the process, because this year, being part of the Higher Ed Committee, being the chairman of Higher Ed, gave me an opportunity to learn more about the process, to be more engaged in the process at the Capitol, and really to be a part of some hands-on activities. And I was really excited about some opportunities that the speaker gave me, not only to be the Higher Ed chairman, but to be a part of some working groups that I think have made some major policy decisions for our state and for our future.
And of course, you being a major player in those, not often do we have that insider's view on how these things work. Talk a little bit about that and some of the things that you're excited about.
Well, I took the approach when I was first appointed as the Higher Ed chairman, not to be a know-it-all, but to be a guy with open ears, to learn the process, to try to hear from higher education, from those involved in higher ed, to learn about what is involved, what our system entails. We have such a diverse system of higher education, and that includes career tech as well, because that's on my committee. And so I really took that approach. And so throughout from February until the end of May, really I was like a sponge soaking in all of the advantages, struggles, challenges for higher education. And we are looking at maybe some interim studies to look at textbook expenses, tuition expenses, the goods and bads of what we have here in as a higher education system in Oklahoma, and how we can improve that. The other thing that I was really blessed to be a part of, and that was something that happened at the beginning of the session. I really think people ought to be proud of the House of Representatives, because the Speaker of the House had the foresight at the beginning of session to start a water working group with a small group of representatives. We started a water working group basically to look at one of the most controversial issues in our state, which is water, because it's dealing with one of our most precious resources in water. But it's something that is such a political hot potato that a lot of people don't have the political will or courage to actually discuss and have good common sense discussions. So the Speaker appointed me as part of this water working group to discuss water in our state. And out of that discussion, we ended the session with, I think, one of the most progressive water legislative proposals that will be passed by the governor hopefully soon, which I think helps place Oklahoma first in the water discussion. And really that's what the discussion ended up being with this water legislation, was making Oklahoma priority, and how can we put us at the top of the list in this water discussion. And really our law was inadequate for doing that, and so we really made some decisions that helped push that forward.
Talk a little bit about that. Talk about the foundation that you were able to lay. If you needed to destroy some of the old to bring in some of the new ideas concerning water, what are the top points with the water discussions that you've had in the legislation that was subsequently passed?
Well, we have there's some permitting issues. One, we have some lawsuits that are pending on us, and really our law is inadequate for dealing with maybe our future permitting usage, and so we really consulted experts in the field to help craft legislation to really protect our future and to make us more viable in regards to this precious resource of water. Part of the process that we had was really just having the will. You think it's something very obvious that, hey, how about a group get together and actually study and talk about that? But like I said, it's such a politically sensitive issue that has not really happened in a while. And so we sat down and we began talking. We began hearing from all the sides, all the perspective, trying to really just gather the information so that we could hear clearly or see clearly the issue at hand and not get wrapped up in all of the emotion of it, which sometimes stops any legitimate conversation that one could have about water.
Well, and as I understand it, Representative, about 5 years ago, a referendum or something was passed about the water in southeast Oklahoma, and subsequently, our neighboring state and our neighbors down in Texas needed water, and they were wanting to use the water that was down in southeast Oklahoma. Oklahoma had the referendum in place. Texas couldn't get to the water, so thus they filed a lawsuit to try to get the water. And now the referendum ends upcoming, and there's a suit that you were talking about. The state of Oklahoma is actually being sued so that this locality in Texas can use Oklahoma water. Thus, there was a real need to look at this problem from your standpoint. Would that be on base and on target as to you had to take care of that referendum, which was expiring, and come up with ways to when you say permitting, come up with ways in which people or entities that needed water, they would have to gain permit or access to the water, and you needed to set that legislative foundation?
Yeah, I think basically what we needed to do was better define what the permitting process would be for our state. And that was one thing that really current legislation is a bit vague, leaves some ambiguity, if I said that correctly, as to exactly the direction that we're going. And so it opens us up to questions more than providing answers. And so hopefully what the legislation did was maybe close some of the questions and provide some answers for entities and also for the courts.
Always discussing the tough issues up at the Capitol, our legislators are making policy that affects all of us. This is just one topic, the topic of water, that we're going to talk about in these discussions with Representative Todd Thomsen. Todd, thanks for being with us today. If you don't mind, we'll continue our conversation in another segment.
Thank you.